Today's my 10th day of having owned and played with a 12.4 Revo shaft from Predator. I did a first look right out of the box 10 days ago, and I promised to follow up on this day, the 10th day. So I'm going to shoot a few shots, discuss a few things along the way. I'm just going to shoot it straight in here, center cue ball. I don't know where the pocket is with this curtain blocking the way. There's some that'll say, well, it's a trick. No, it's not a trick. I don't know where the pocket is. I know the vicinity of the pocket, and I could probably point a laser under the curtain and get real close. I might even hit inside the pocket somewhere. But what I do know, because of CTE, is that I know how to look at the cue ball and the object ball so that the system takes me to that right angle. So there is objectivity within the context of these two spheres. So if you know how to use your vision, and I do, it's taken me a lot of years to figure it out, but I do know how to use my vision in such a way that I can use the objectivity on these two balls for connecting with the pockets. So on this shot, another straight in. So I don't know where the pocket is. I just know what to look at on these two balls as far as being able to pocket the ball. What I know basically is how to align my cue to center cue ball for making that shot. I didn't know where the pocket was. I just know how to look at the two balls and align my cue. So, you know, typically when we look at a shaft like this, we want to see what the spin properties are and the deflection properties are concerning a shaft like this. Well, it's important to me to know what to look at on the balls as far as center cue ball goes. And then when I'm applying spin, then hopefully the bridge V that I use for center cue ball and my visual position that I use for center cue ball has very little deviation away from the standard that I know for center cue ball. So when I shoot this ball here with some low outside, then my spin adjustments, which is very minute, is based on what I know that makes the ball with a center cue ball tip position. Now if I take that same shot and use some inside spin, the shot gets a little bit tougher. Inside spin's a little bit harder than outside spin. Not much, but slightly. So I'm going to use just a little bit of inside spin on this ball. Now there on that shot, for example, I slightly adjusted my bridge V to the inside, not much, very small. I would describe it as a micro amount, but my visual, from my visual to the object ball was not changed. So that shot at least had a minimal adverse effect on my typical position for center cue ball. My vision got to stay the same and my bridge V slightly adjusted. Now if I want to shoot that same shot and load it up with inside spin, now I'm going to deviate away from my standard bridge V position, and I'm going to deviate from my standard eye position, and I'm going to do it quite a bit. So the degree of iffiness on this shot it certainly increases. So I loaded that up pretty good, and I had a fairly high degree of confidence that I could pocket the ball, because I'm making a double adjustment on that with my bridge and with my vision, but I'm doing it based on a known perception. So I'm going to put some outside and some draw on this ball, and I'm going to load it up pretty good. So I had a slight bridge V adjustment there, slight visual adjustment, not much, but I'm so close to what I'm used to doing with center cue ball, then it wasn't too difficult. Now this shot is going to get a little bit iffier. Put some inside and go around the table 3 rails. The shot's based on what I know. Again, I don't know where that pocket is, but I know foundationally what to look at on the cue ball and the object ball for successful pocketing. So my adjustments are based off what I'm familiar with. So when I look at this cue ball object ball, most of you are familiar with 15, 30, 45, and 60. I have to make a determination. Is it a 15, 30, 45, or 60? Well, this is a 15, and I know that it's an outside. That's all I need to know. I don't have to know where the pocket is. Now, if I'm going to put some low outside on this ball, I'm going to make a slight adjustment to that. It all starts with understanding center cue ball. You see, when you're aiming with 2 seers in the game of pool, you're not supposed to be able to have objective shots. I mean truly objective shots, like you can draw up on a sheet of paper for a 0 angle shot. You're not supposed to have those unless it's a dead center to center shot, or unless it's, say, a half ball aim. But even then, you could be slightly off. Even on a straight in, you don't know if it's perfectly straight in. So when I shoot this shot, once again, I have to look at it, and I have to ascertain what visual perception connects with that right angle. Since this is a 2-by-1 table, I know there's a pocket over there because there's 6 pockets on a regulation pool table. I don't know exactly where it is, but I know that my 15 inside alignment will connect me with that pocket. So what was never supposed to be in this game? Actually, there's 3 or 4 of those never supposed to be's. But one of them is you're just not supposed to be able to cut a ball into a pocket with a precise, accurate, objective explanation of how it's done. Well, that's changed, and it's changed thanks to Hal Houle. Hal Houle did a lot of work in aiming. I know for certain back during the 40s and up to 1950, and he discovered some things that were as a result of his thinking outside of the box. He didn't readily share all of his information with everybody. He shared his information with a few people. He spread his information around in different ways, but he made a decision that he wasn't going to just lay it out there on a platter. So consequently, that's one reason it's taken me 10 years to put all this together, so that it can be totally explained, not partially explained, but totally explained. So does this shaft perform for me in a satisfactory manner? It does. Would I say that the shaft is 5 or 10% more accurate than the previous low deflection shafts that I've played with? That's very hard to quantify. I might have to come back 10 days later or 20 or 30 days later to answer that question. I can say that it's a very superior type performing shaft. It hits very well. Surprisingly solid. I'm so impressed with the smoothness of the shaft. I haven't done anything to this shaft in 10 days, and it is so incredibly smooth and good feeling. And I mentioned this in my first review that I'm just so super pleased that this shaft matched up absolutely 100% perfect to the butt of this cue. The one negative that I mentioned in my first look right out of the box review was this seemed a little light. I don't see that, I don't feel that anymore. I've adjusted to it, so I wouldn't classify that as a negative in any kind of way. So I don't have a lot of power in my stroke. I've got as much as I ever did. You know, I'm not at age 70 yet, but I'm creeping on up there for sure. But you know, one thing that I'm happy about these days is that I see better than I've ever seen balls before. It's knowledge. I can line up to balls better than I ever have before. You know, I spent a lot of my life in the struggling mode, trying to understand what to do up here and how to align and so forth. And some days I would get it, and some days I wouldn't. And I had a lot of success with that, but it was certainly mired with a lot of frustration, not a lot of confidence. You know, I could play great one day, and then the second day, where did it go? How do I get it back? Well, if you have visual knowledge of what you're doing, it's a whole lot easier to get it back. I'd say I could not hit a ball for 6 weeks and come in here. I'm going to know exactly what to look at on these balls. I'm not going to have to start feeling very much. So I'm just going to get greased up and grooved up, and I think I would fall back into stroke a lot quicker because my visual game is going to be in place. I just have to get the physical game following my visual perception. So it's not, and again, it's not easy just to talk your way through. I think 13 balls fit into that pocket right there. But you know, I'm talking through these balls, putting spin on the balls. That should be some kind of an indication that I have knowledge concerning what it is I'm doing. And that knowledge all starts with learning how to use center cue ball. So all in all, I'm very pleased with this Revo 12.4. I've been used to using a 12.5, so this is slightly smaller. It feels great. The taper on these cues, to me, is phenomenal. I'm playing with the tip that came on it, the soft version of the tip. It does very well. So I'm certain that I will continue with a soft tip. I'm not for sure which one, but I'm certain I'll continue with the soft tip. But all in all, I give this shaft a big thumbs up. There's a lot of other